The notification flashed across Lyra's datapad for the third time that week. Her four hands trembled as she read the message again, hoping the words might change. They did not. Ash had been expelled. Again, she sat in the cramped break room of her second job, surrounded by the smell of synthetic cleaning fluid and the hum of recycling processors. Her shift at the waste management facility would not end for another 3 hours. After that, she had 4 more hours sorting cargo at the freight docks. Sleep would come sometime after midnight. If she was lucky, Lyra pressed her primary hands against her face. The chitinous plates of her Velthian skin felt cold. She had not eaten properly in 2 days, saving credits for Ash's special heat-resistant clothing. Dragon children grew fast. Nothing fit him for long. Bad news? Her supervisor asked, antenna twitching with concern. My son, Lyra said quietly. School problems. The supervisor's expression shifted. Everyone on Crossroads Haven knew about her dragon son. Most avoided mentioning him. The Draconite child? Lyra nodded. She hated how people said it. The Draconite child. Never just Ash. Never just a boy who liked drawing and collecting smooth stones and asked endless questions about stars. Perhaps it is for the best, the supervisor said, not unkindly. Those creatures are not meant for normal society. The containment facilities have excellent programs. Lyra's secondary hands clenched. She forced her voice to stay level. He is 8 years old. He is my son. He belongs with me. She returned to work before the supervisor could respond. Her thoughts spiraled as she sprayed down the sanitation chamber. 4 schools in 2 years. 4 failures. Each time, the pattern was the same. Ash would try so hard to control himself. He would sit perfectly still, barely breathing, terrified of another incident. Then something would startle him. A loud noise. A bully. Sometimes nothing at all. The flames would come, and the screaming would start, and another administrator would tell her that they simply could not accommodate such a dangerous student. Dangerous. Her gentle boy who cried when he accidentally stepped on insects, who sang old Draconite lullabies in a voice like crackling embers, who had never deliberately hurt anyone in his entire life. When her shift ended, Lyra walked through the market district toward the freight docks. Other workers hurried home to their families. She passed a Centaurian family laughing together at a food stall. 3 small children hung from their parents' arms, safe and loved and normal. Her maid had left 6 months after she brought Ash home. I cannot bond with that thing, he had said. Choose. The creature or our future. She had chosen Ash. Some choices were not really choices at all. The freight supervisor handed her the night's assignments without meeting her eyes. Word traveled fast on a space station. Failed mother. Dangerous child. Poor judgment. She could hear the thoughts even when no one spoke them. Lyra lifted cargo containers until her muscles burned. Physical pain was easier than the other kind. She tried not to think about the social worker's visit tomorrow. Tried not to imagine Ash in a containment facility, surrounded by cold metal and fear instead of warmth and love. She arrived home well past midnight. Their quarters were small, tucked in the cheapest section of the residential ring. Ash lay curled on his sleeping mat, scales rising and falling with each breath. Small wisps of smoke escaped his nostrils. He always smoked a little when he dreamed. The babysitter, an elderly Mytharian, looked exhausted. He had another episode during dinner. Nothing caught fire this time. I managed to calm him down. Lyra paid her, watching precious credits disappear. The babysitter hesitated at the door. My daughter says I should not come back. She worries about safety. I understand, Lyra said, though her heart sank. That made 3 babysitters in 4 months. After the door closed, Lyra knelt beside Ash. She ran her primary hand across his horned head, feeling the warmth that always radiated from him. He stirred, eyes opening. They glowed like coals in the darkness. Mom? Are you okay? I am fine, little flame. Sleep now. I try to be good today, he whispered. I really tried. I know my heart. I know you did. He fell asleep quickly. Children always did, even children who breathe fire. Lyra remained kneeling beside him, watching him dream. She had no answers, no plans, no hope left in reserve. Her data pad chimed softly. Another message. Lyra almost deleted it without reading. Probably another rejection. Another door closing, but something made her open it. The message came from a new community center in the education district. They offered alternative programs for children with exceptional needs. Flexible scheduling, individualized support. No child turned away. The center was run by humans. Lyra had heard about humans. Everyone had. The new species from the infamous Death World. They had arrived in the galactic community only 5 years ago, bringing their violence and chaos with them. They fought their own wars. 8 dangerous creatures survived on a planet that actively tried to kill them. Everything Lyra had heard suggested that humans were the last species she should trust with her son, but the message promised hope. Real hope, not pity or containment or giving up. Lyra looked at Ash, still sleeping peacefully. She thought about the social worker's visit tomorrow, about the containment facility, about her son growing up behind barriers, treated like a monster instead of a child. She replied to the message, requested an appointment, pressed send before she could change her mind. Sometimes drowning people grabbed whatever floated by, even if that lifeline came from a species known for surviving the unsurvivable. Lyra lay down beside her son, breathing in the smell of ash and warmth that meant home. Tomorrow would bring new struggles. Tonight, they still had each other. That had to be enough. Crossroads Haven Education District looked different in daylight. Clean streets, laughing children, parents who did not look exhausted. Lyra held Ash's hand tightly as they approached the Human Community Center. Her son had worn his best tunic, the one without burn holes. He walked with his head down, trying to make himself smaller. What they do not want me either, Ash asked quietly. Then we find another way, Lyra said, though she had no idea what that way might be. The community center occupied a converted warehouse. Through the windows, Lyra could see children running, playing, doing normal things. Her antenna twitched nervously. Humans were supposed to be dangerous. This looked almost peaceful that a human male stood outside, directing foot traffic. He was tall by galactic standards, with dark skin and silver-touched hair. He smiled when he saw them approaching. Humans showed all their teeth when they smiled. Lyra knew this was meant to be friendly, but generations of predator awareness made her instinct scream. "You must be Lyra," the human said. His voice was warm. "I'm Robert Hayes. And you must be Ash." Ash pressed against Lyra's side. A small puff of smoke escaped his nose. Fear response. Robert did not step back. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with Ash's. "I heard you can breathe fire. That is amazing. I have always wished I could do that." Ash blinked. "Really? Absolutely. Do you know how useful fire is? Humans use it for almost everything. Cooking, warmth, light, forging metal. Fire built our entire civilization." Robert stood, gesturing toward the building. "Come inside. I want to show you something." The center's interior was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Children of a dozen species ran through activity stations. Human adults supervised, but they were not enforcing silence or stillness. They were laughing, playing, joining the games. "We opened 2 months ago," Robert explained as they walked. The station had hundreds of children who did not fit traditional school systems. "We thought humans might understand that better than most." "Why?" Lyra asked. "Because Earth taught us that different does not mean broken." Robert led them past a room where a Centaurian child floated in a zero-gravity chamber, giggling wildly. "That is Ben. He has spatial processing issues. Cannot handle standard gravity environments for long. So we built him a space where his challenges become advantages." They passed another room. A small human girl sat at a table, hands moving rapidly. She was speaking without sound, fingers dancing through elaborate patterns. "My daughter, Lily," Robert said, and his voice carried obvious love. "She is deaf, cannot hear at all, but she communicates just fine." Lyra watched the girl sign to another child, a Mytharian who signed back with tentacles. "You taught the other children her language?" "We taught her language to everyone. Why should she be the only one who has to adapt?" Robert smiled. "Humans learned a long time ago that the problem is not the child. The problem is a world that only works one way. They entered a smaller room. Heat-resistant panels covered the walls. Scorch marks blackened one corner. Robert noticed Lyra staring. We have another Draconite student, older than Ash. He comes twice a week to practice control. Robert pulled out a small metal device. This is a human camping stove. We use it for cooking outdoors. He demonstrated, igniting a small, controlled flame. Ash leaned forward, fascinated. Fire is just energy, Robert continued. It is not good or bad. What matters is control and purpose. Like any tool. The schools say Ash cannot control his fire, Lyra said quietly. They say he is too dangerous. The schools expect an 8-year-old child to have perfect control over a biological function he does not fully understand. Robert's expression hardened slightly. That is like expecting a human toddler to never spill their drink. Unrealistic and unfair. He looked at Ash. Can I ask you something? When does your fire come out? Ash's eyes dropped. Why get scared? Or excited? Or sometimes just because. Do you feel it before it happens? Sometimes. Like pressure in my chest. Good. That is your body warning you. Humans get warnings too. Fast heartbeat. Sweaty palms. We teach our children to recognize those feelings and respond to them. Robert knelt again. Would you like to try something? Just a small experiment. Ash looked at Lyra. She nodded, though her hearts raced. Robert handed Ash a heat-proof cloth. Hold this in front of your mouth. When you feel that pressure, breathe out slowly through the cloth. Let the fire come, but control how fast. What if I burn something? Everything in this room is fireproof. You cannot hurt anything here. This is a safe place to practice. Ash took the cloth with shaking hands. He closed his eyes, concentrating. Lyra saw his small chest expand, then contract. A thin stream of flame escaped his mouth, caught by the cloth. Controlled, deliberate, beautiful that Ash's eyes went wide. I did it. You did. Robert grinned. Again. 5 more times. For 20 minutes, Lyra watched her son practice breathing fire under supervision. Each time, the flames came a little slower, a little more controlled. Robert offered quiet guidance, never showing frustration or fear. When other parents arrived for pickup, one saw Ash and immediately pulled her child away. That is a Draconite. They should not be allowed here. That is a child learning to manage his abilities, Robert said calmly. Just like your son learns to manage his strength. It is completely different. Dragons are dangerous, only when afraid or unsupported. Like most children. Robert's voice carried authority. Every child in this center is here because someone decided they were too much trouble. I do not accept that judgment. Not for anyone. The parent left, muttering. Lyra expected Robert to look upset. Instead, he turned back to Ash like nothing had happened. You did excellent work today. Would you like to come back? We have sessions 3 times a week. Ash looked at Lyra with such desperate hope that her hearts ached. Can I? I cannot pay much, Lyra admitted. I work 3 jobs already. The program is free. Station funding and donations. Robert smiled. Besides, I have selfish reasons. I am writing a guide for teaching exceptional children. Ash could help me prove my methods work. He walked them to the door. Actually, I have a strange request. Would you both join Lily and me for dinner tomorrow? At our home. I want to discuss a longer-term plan for Ash, and I think better over food. Lyra hesitated. Going to a human's private residence seemed dangerous. But she looked at Ash, who had stopped smoking for the first time all day. We accept, she said, but Robert's smile widened. Excellent. Fair warning, though. I am cooking human food. It might be weird. As they left, Ash held his head higher. A small flame danced at his fingertips, controlled and steady. He was not trying to hide anymore. For the first time in years, Lyra felt something that might have been hope. Robert's apartment sat in a middle-tier residential section. Not expensive, but maintained. Lyra noticed adaptive equipment everywhere. Flashing light panels instead of audio doorbells. Visual timers. Communication boards with pictures and symbols that a small human girl opened the door before they could knock. She grinned and signed something rapidly. Lily says welcome, and she is excited to meet a real dragon. Robert translated, appearing behind his daughter. Come in. Dinner is almost ready. The apartment smelled strange. Spices Lyra did not recognize. Heat and something savory. Robert worked at a cooking station, multiple pots producing steam. He moved with practiced efficiency, checking temperatures and stirring. I am making stir-fry, he explained. Human dish. Vegetables, protein, sauce over grain. Simple but good. Lily grabbed Ash's hand and pulled him toward a low table covered in drawing supplies. She signed something. She wants to draw with you, Robert said. Lily communicates best through pictures when she first meets someone. Ash looked at Lyra. She nodded. Her son settled beside the human girl, accepting the paper she offered. Within minutes, they were drawing together. Lily sketched a stick figure family. Ash drew flames that looked like flowers. Lyra watched them, barely believing the ease of it. No fear, no judgment, just two children playing. How do you do this? She asked Robert quietly. Do what? Make it look so easy. Raising a child who is different. Robert's hands stilled over the cutting board. It is not easy. Nothing about parenting is easy. He resumed, chopping vegetables. My wife died 2 years ago. Illness. Very sudden. Left me alone with a deaf, 6-year-old daughter who had just lost her mother and could not understand why. I am sorry. The first year was terrible. I tried to fix everything. Tried to make Lily's world easier by forcing it to accommodate her. Got angry when it would not. Robert added vegetables to a hot pan. They sizzled. Then I realized I was doing it backwards. The world was not going to change, but I could change how Lily moved through it. He stirred the food, steam rising. I stopped trying to make her hear. Started learning to see. Stopped demanding she fit into normal school. Found teachers who adapted to her needs. Stopped seeing her deafness as a problem. Started seeing it as just part of who she is. Lyra's antenna drooped. I have tried everything with Ash. Nothing works, because you are trying methods designed for children who do not breathe fire. Ash needs something different. Robert plated the food. Humans have experience with this. We call them neurodivergent children, brains that work differently than expected. 4 generations, we try to force them into normal boxes. Made everyone miserable. He brought plates to the table. Lily and Ash looked up from their drawings. The human girl had sketched a dragon and a person holding hands. Ash had added a rainbow of fire above them. Then we learned to build supports around the child instead of breaking the child to fit supports. Robert sat down. I think Ash needs the same approach. They ate together. The human food was strange but good, spicy and warm. Ash kept looking at his plate in wonder. This is amazing. The heat comes from peppers, plants that grow on Earth. Humans bred them to be spicier over thousands of years because we enjoy the challenge. Robert smiled. We are weird that way. We make things harder just to prove we can handle it. After dinner, Robert cleared the table. Lily and Ash continued drawing. Lyra helped clean, grateful for something to do with her hands. I have been researching draconite development, Robert said as they worked. Your species goes through hormonal surges between ages 7 and 10. Fire production increases dramatically. Emotional regulation decreases. It is biological. The schools know this. They still expel them because they expect him to control biology through willpower alone. That is like expecting human teenagers to stop growing just because it is inconvenient. Robert dried a plate. But there are techniques. Human children with emotional regulation issues benefit from structure, practice, and safe expression. He led Lyra to his personal workspace. Papers covered every surface. Notes, diagrams, research on draconite biology mixed with human child development theories. I think Ash needs 3 things. First, regular practice in a safe environment where fire is expected and managed. Second, techniques to recognize and respond to the pressure he feels before flames come. Third, reframing fire as communication instead of failure. Communication. Emotions seek expression. Human children cry, yell, hit things. Ash breathes fire. Same impulse, different output. Robert pulled out a chart. Look, I tracked the other draconite students' fire patterns. Different colors and intensities correlate with different emotions. Red-orange means frustration. Blue-white means fear. Yellow means excitement. Lyra stared at the research. You did this in 2 months? I am motivated. Too many children get discarded because adults lack creativity. Robert's expression turned serious. I want to help Ash. 3 sessions per week, working on control techniques. But I need your partnership. You have to learn the methods too, apply them at home. I work 3 jobs. I barely have time to sleep. Then we adjust. Maybe 2 sessions. Maybe I send video lessons you can watch during breaks. Maybe Lily and I come to your home sometimes. Robert met her eyes. The point is, we find a way. Because giving up is not an option. In the main room, Ash suddenly yelped. A burst of flame shot from his mouth. The drawing he had been working on caught fire. Lyra rushed forward, panic flooding her system. But Robert moved faster. He grabbed a fire blanket from a nearby cabinet, smothered the flames calmly. Deep breath, Ash, he said. No anger. No fear. What did you feel right before? I got excited. Lily drew something funny, and I laughed. And then Ash's eyes filled with tears. I ruined it. I always ruin everything. You experienced an emotion, and your body responded. That is not ruining. That is being alive. Robert knelt beside him. But let's practice that response. Lily, could you draw something else funny? The girl nodded, already sketching. Ash, put your hand on your chest. Feel that pressure building when you start to laugh. Robert placed his own hand over his heart. Humans feel it too. Tightness. Warmth. That is your warning system. When you feel it, you have a choice. Let the fire out fast or slow it down with breathing. Lily finished her drawing. It showed a dragon wearing a tiny hat. Objectively hilarious, Ash laughed. His chest expanded. But this time, he pressed his hand against it, feeling the pressure. He breathed out slowly, deliberately. A small flame escaped, controlled and brief. Better, Robert said. Again, they practiced for an hour. Lily kept drawing funny pictures. Ash kept laughing and breathing and managing small flames. Not perfectly, but better than before. Better than he had ever done. When it was time to leave, Ash hugged Robert. The human did not flinch from the heat. Thank you, Lyra said quietly. For seeing him. Really seeing him. I see a brave kid trying his best in a world that does not make sense to him. Robert smiled. Same as my daughter. Same as a lot of children. They all deserve someone who refuses to give up. Walking home, Ash talked nonstop about the evening. About Lily's drawings. About the breathing technique. About feeling fire as something he could control instead of something that controlled him. Lyra listened, feeling the weight on her chest lighten slightly. The social worker would still visit tomorrow. The problems had not disappeared. But for the first time in years, she had an ally. Sometimes hope came from unexpected places. Sometimes it came from a human who treated impossible challenges as simple problems waiting for creative solutions. The social worker arrived exactly on time. Lyra had cleaned their small quarters 3 times, though it never looked much better. Ash sat quietly in the corner, practicing the breathing exercises Robert had taught him. Small wisps of smoke escaped his nostrils with each controlled exhale. Ms. Lyra, the social worker began, settling into a chair with her data pad. We need to discuss Ash's future. He has a future. With me. For expulsions in 2 years. 6 babysitters who refuse to return. Incidents at the market, the medical clinic, the transit station. The social worker's voice was not unkind, but it was firm. You are overwhelmed. Ash needs specialized care. He needs his mother. The containment facility has trained staff. Fireproof environments. Other Draconite children. He would be safe there. He would be in a cage. Lyra's hands clenched. You call it a facility. I call it prison for children whose only crime is being different. The social worker sighed. I understand your feelings, but do you have children? Lyra interrupted. That is not relevant. It is completely relevant. Do you know what it is like to love someone the entire world calls dangerous? To watch your child shrink and hide and hate himself because everyone treats him like a monster. Ash made a small sound. Lyra looked over. He was trembling, smoke pouring from his nose. Fear response. She moved to his side immediately. Deep breath, little flame. Like Robert showed you. Feel the pressure. Slow it down. Ash pressed his hands to his chest. Breathed in through his nose. Out through his mouth. The smoke decreased. Not gone, but controlled. The social worker watched with obvious surprise. That is new. We found help. A human who runs a community center. He has been working with Ash. A human. The social worker's antenna twitched. Those Deathworlders? You trust them with your son? More than I trust a system that wants to lock him away. Lyra kept her hand on Ash's shoulder. Robert has done more for Ash in 3 days than 4 schools did in 2 years. One person cannot solve systemic issues. Maybe not, but he can help one child. That is enough. The social worker made notes on her data pad. I will need to observe this human's methods. If they're not adequate, my recommendation stands. Ash needs containment-level care. After she left, Lyra held Ash close. He was still shaking. I hate this. I hate being broken. You are not broken. Then why does everyone want to send me away? Lyra had no good answer. She sent a message to Robert instead, explaining the situation. His reply came within minutes. Bring Ash to the center tomorrow. We accelerate the timeline. Also, I run a parent support group on Thursday evenings. You should come. You need community too. The next afternoon, Robert met them in the heat-resistant practice room. But he was not alone. An older Draconite stood beside him, scales dark with age. This is Simon, Robert introduced. He also teaches at the center. Former firefighter on his homeworld. Controls his flames better than anyone I have ever met. Simon nodded to Ash. I heard you were having trouble, young one. Ash's eyes went wide. He had never met an adult Draconite before. You can control your fire? I can, but I could not when I was your age. I burned down 3 buildings and almost killed my teacher. Simon smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Then I met someone who taught me that fire is not the enemy. Fear is. For the next 2 hours, Simon and Robert worked with Ash together. The Draconite demonstrated advanced techniques. Flame shaping, temperature control, directional breathing. Robert explained the theory behind each exercise, relating it to human emotional regulation methods. Lyra watched her son create a perfect sphere of fire, holding it steady for 10 seconds before extinguishing it. Impossible. She had been told this was impossible for a child his age. The problem is not capacity, Robert explained to her quietly. The problem is that no one taught him how. They just expected him to figure it out alone, then punished him for failing. How did you know it would work? I did not. Not for certain. Robert pulled out his data pad, showing graphs and charts. But humans spent centuries developing methods for helping children with impulse control issues. Anxiety, anger management, sensory processing. The biology is different, but the underlying principles are the same. He showed her a video of a human child having a meltdown. The adult in the video did not yell or punish. She helped the child identify feelings, practice calming techniques, create a safe space to express emotion. We learned that behavior is communication. When a child acts out, they are telling you something is wrong. Maybe they are overwhelmed, scared, overstimulated. Our job is to teach them better ways to communicate those needs. Robert gestured to Ash, who is now creating small flame patterns in the air. His job is not to stop being a Draconite. His job is to learn to be a Draconite in a multi-species society. Over the next 3 weeks, Lyra brought Ash to the center 5 times a week. Robert never charged her. He worked with Ash on breathing techniques, emotional recognition, safe expression. Simon taught cultural aspects of Draconite fire use. Together, they created a comprehensive plan. Robert also insisted Lyra attend the parent support group. She resisted at first. She had no time. But he was insistent. The group met in a quiet room. 8 parents, 6 different species. All of them exhausted. All of them struggling with children the system had rejected that a Centaurian mother talked about her son's violent outbursts. A human father discussed his daughter's crippling anxiety. A Mytharian shared custody battle over a child with processing delays. Lyra listened, realizing she was not alone. These parents understood. They did not judge. They shared strategies, offered support, simply witnessed each other's struggles. The galaxy tells us our children are broken, Robert said during one session. I reject that entirely. Our children are navigating a world designed for people unlike them. That is not a deficiency. That is a challenge requiring creative adaptation. He looked around the circle. On Earth, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. We build that village here. For our children and for ourselves. Lyra found herself returning every week. The other parents became friends. They traded babysitting, shared resources, celebrated small victories together. Meanwhile, Ash transformed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily. He learned to recognize the warning signs before his fire came. Learned to breathe through intense emotions. Learned that feeling things deeply was not a flaw, but controlling the expression was a skill point. 1 month after that first dinner, Robert invited the social worker to observe Ash during a practice session. She watched Ash create controlled flames on command. Watch him extinguish them just as easily. Watched him laugh without burning anything. Get frustrated without losing control. This is remarkable, she admitted. I have never seen a Draconite child with this level of mastery. Because no one gave them the tools, Robert said simply. We expect children to develop skills without teaching those skills, then call them failures when they struggle. The social worker updated her report. Ash could stay with Lyra, conditional on continued participation in Robert's program. That evening, Robert made dinner for them again. This time, he taught Ash to help cook. The boy used careful flames to toast bread, heat oil, char vegetables. His fire had purpose now. It was useful. Lily set the table, chatting with Ash in their mixed language of sign and simple speech. The children had become inseparable. I cannot thank you enough, Lyra told Robert as they prepared food together. You saved my son. I just gave him what every child deserves. Patience, understanding, someone who believes in them. Robert smiled. Besides, Ash did the hard work. He chose to try. He chose to practice. He chose to believe he could improve. You made him believe it was possible. Maybe. But possibility is just the starting point. Robert plated the food. Humans learned something important on Earth. Evolution does not reward the strongest or the smartest. It rewards the most adaptable. We survived our terrible planet by refusing to accept that anything was impossible. He looked at Ash, who was carefully lighting candles for the table with tiny, controlled flames. Your son is not broken. The systems around him were inflexible. Humans are very good at building flexible systems. We had to be. Our planet demanded it. They ate together, laughing and talking. Ash told a joke. Lily signed something funny. Robert translated. Lyra felt her chest ache with something that was not pain. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Safe, warm, accepting. Later, walking home under the artificial stars of the station, Ash held her hand. Mom, do you think I'm going to be okay? Lyra looked at her son, at his bright eyes, at the small, controlled flame he created in his palm just to light their way. I think you're going to be extraordinary. 3 months passed like water through Lyra's hands. Fast, unstoppable, transformative. Ash returned to school. Not his old school, but a new one affiliated with Robert Center. They had special accommodations now. A heat-resistant desk. Break periods where Ash could visit the practice room. Teachers trained in emotional regulation support. The first week had been rough. Ash came home exhausted from the effort of controlling himself in a full classroom. But he did not come home crying. Did not come home having burned anything. Did not come home hating himself. By week 4, he made a friend. A quiet Mytharian girl who liked to draw. They sat together at lunch, sharing food and stories. Normal child things. Lyra had reduced her work to 2 jobs. Robert's program had connected her with financial assistance resources she had not known existed. Station welfare, community funds, species-specific support networks. The human had spent hours helping her navigate bureaucracy, filling out forms, advocating on her behalf. This is what humans do, he had said when she thanked him. We build systems, then we help people access those systems. Otherwise, what is the point? Thursday evenings remained sacred. The parent support group had grown to 15 families. They shared meals now, rotating who brought food. Tonight was Lyra's turn. She had made traditional Velthian grain cakes, though she worried they would not translate well to other species' palates. The human father who struggled with his anxious daughter tried one and smiled. These are excellent. My daughter would love these. Can I get the recipe? Lyra found herself trading cooking tips with a Centaurian mother, sharing childcare strategies with a Mytharian father, laughing at stories that would have made her cry months ago. Robert ran the sessions with gentle authority. He shared new research, facilitated difficult conversations, reminded them all that struggling did not equal failing. I learned something preparing for tonight, he said, pulling up a presentation. Humans have a concept called neurodiversity, the idea that brains naturally develop differently, and those differences are valuable variations rather than defects. He showed images, graphs, studies from Earth. 4 generations, we try to force everyone into one narrow definition of normal. Medicated children for being too active, punished them for being too quiet, treated sensitivity as weakness and intensity as disorder. Robert's expression was serious. Then we realized we were destroying the very traits that made humans adaptable. Different perspectives, unique problem solving, alternative ways of experiencing the world. A Mytharian mother raised a tentacle. But some differences are genuinely disabling. My son cannot process visual information at normal speeds. That is not just diversity. That is impairment. Yes, Robert agreed. And that is where support comes in. The goal is not to eliminate difference. The goal is to build a world where difference does not automatically mean disadvantage. He gestured around the room. Every child here has something that makes standard systems difficult. But difficulty is not impossibility. With the right supports, every one of them can thrive. After the session, parents lingered, talking, connecting, building the village Robert always mentioned. Lyra helped clean up, stacking chairs and wiping tables. You look lighter, Robert observed. Less burdened. I sleep now. That helps. Lyra smiled. I had a good week at school. No incidents. His teacher sent a positive report. He is doing remarkable work. So are you. I am just surviving. Surviving is underrated, especially when the galaxy makes survival unnecessarily hard. Robert finished stacking the last chair. Actually, I wanted to discuss something with you. My program is expanding. The station approved funding for 10 more staff positions. I need people who understand what these families face. People who have lived it. Lyra's antenna perked. What are you saying? I'm offering you a job. Assistant director. You would help coordinate services, connect families with resources, facilitate support groups. Part-time to start, but it would replace at least one of your current jobs. I have no training. No credencials. You have something better. Experience. Empathy. Proof that the system can work when someone cares enough to make it work. Robert met her eyes. These families need someone who has been where they are, who knows what drowning feels like, who can offer real hope because they have seen the other side. Lyra thought about the freight dock, the waste management facility, the exhaustion that had defined her life for years. I would like that. Very much. Good. You start next week. Meanwhile, Ash's world was expanding in ways Lyra had never imagined possible. He joined a youth fire dancing group. 5 Draconite children, all learning to use their flames as art instead of accidents. They practiced twice a week, choreographing routines that combined traditional Draconite culture with modern performance. Simon led the group with patience and pride. Our people have always been fire dancers, he told the young students. We just forgot, scattered across the galaxy. Now, we remember. Ash came home from practices glowing with more than heat. He talked about the routines, the other children, the performance they were planning for the station's cultural festival. Everyone will see, he said one evening, eyes bright. They will see that Draconite fire is beautiful. Lyra watched him practice in their quarters, creating spirals and shapes from controlled flames. Her son, the child she had been told to surrender, creating art from a thing that had almost destroyed his life. One afternoon, Robert invited Lyra and Ash to visit his home again. Another dinner, he said. A celebration. They arrived to find the apartment decorated. Lily had made banners with drawings. A cake sat on the counter, clearly human-made with its strange frosting and layers. What are we celebrating? Ash asked. Robert smiled. Your mother's new job. Your school success. Lily learning 3 new signs this week. And this. He pulled out an official-looking document. Station letterhead. Official seals. The Education Council reviewed my program. They want to implement the model station-wide. Every school will have support staff trained in adaptive methods. Every teacher will learn to work with exceptional children. Every family will have access to resources. Robert's voice carried quiet triumph. They're calling it the Ash Initiative. Lyra's hands flew to her mouth. What? They wanted to name it after the first success story. The child who proved that different does not mean broken. That was Ash. The young Draconite stood frozen, processing. They named it after me. You changed the system by refusing to let the system break you. Robert knelt beside him. Every child who gets help now gets it partly, because you showed everyone what was possible. Ash's eyes filled with tears. Happy tears this time. Small flames danced at his fingertips, controlled and purposeful. Joy expressed through fire. They celebrated with human cake and Velthian grain cakes and a dozen other dishes from a dozen other cultures. Lily performed a dance she had choreographed. Ash created a fire display in the heat-resistant corner, shapes and colors telling a story without words. Later, after the children fell asleep on the couch tangled together like littermates, Robert and Lyra talked quietly in the kitchen. I still do not understand, Lyra admitted. Why did you care so much? You did not know us. Had no obligation. Robert was quiet for a moment. When my wife died, I was drowning. Lily was grieving, and I could not help her because I was too busy grieving myself. Everyone told me to put her in special care. Let professionals handle it. Get on with my life. He looked at his sleeping daughter. But she was not a problem to solve. She was my child who needed me. So I learned. I adapted. I built a life that worked for both of us. He turned to Lyra. When I saw you in Ash, I saw myself 2 years ago. Exhausted. Desperate. Out of options. I knew what you needed because I had needed it too. Someone who refused to give up. Someone who believed impossible was just another challenge. You saved us. You saved yourselves. I just refused to let you drown alone. Robert smiled. That is what humans do. We survive together. Our death world taught us that isolation means death. Community means survival. Lyra looked at Ash, sleeping peacefully. No smoke, no fear, just a child resting after a good day. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Thank you for trusting me. For letting a death worlder near your most precious thing. Robert's expression turned thoughtful. You know what I think? I think the galaxy needs more of this. More humans willing to help. More families willing to try new methods. More children given real chances. You're already changing the galaxy. One family at a time. Maybe. But change is slow work. Requires patience. Persistence. Refusing to accept no for an answer. Robert grinned. Good thing humans are stubborn. They cleaned up together, moving around each other with the ease of established friendship. Outside the window, the station rotated through its artificial night cycle. Thousands of species, millions of lives, all trying to build something better. And in one small apartment, 2 parents and 2 exceptional children proved that better was possible. 1 year after that first desperate message to the Human Community Center, Lyra stood backstage at the Crossroads Haven Cultural Festival. Around her, chaos reigned. Performers from 30 species prepared for their acts. Musiciens tenaient un possible instrument. Dancers stretched in ways that defied physics. And 5 young Draconites breathed fire in perfect synchronization, their flames forming a phoenix in the air. Excellent, Simon called. Hold that formation. 3, 2, 1, release. The flames dispersed in a controlled cascade. The children grinned, smoke curling from their nostrils. Ash stood among them, no longer the smallest or the most frightened. He had grown over the year. Taller, steadier. His scales had darkened to a rich bronze. But more than his body had changed. His entire presence radiated confidence. We are ready, he announced. Simon nodded approval. Remember, this is not just performance. This is education. You show the galaxy what Draconite culture truly means. Lyra felt a hand on her shoulder. Robert stood beside her, Lily perched on his other side. The girl signed rapidly, excited. Lily says the lighting setup is perfect. Robert translated. She helped design it, made sure the colors would complement the fire. You are both staying to watch. Would not miss it. Robert smiled. Besides, I have a personal stake. That is my star student up there. The festival coordinator called 5-minute warning. Performers moved toward the stage entrance. Lyra pulled Ash aside for a moment. How do you feel? Nervous. Excited. Ready. Ash created a small flame in his palm, perfectly controlled. Mom, a year ago I cannot do this. I cannot control anything. Now I am performing in front of thousands. You worked hard for this. We worked hard. Ash looked at Robert. All of us. The music started. The young Draconites took the stage. Lyra held her breath. What followed was beautiful. Ancient Draconite fire dancing merged with modern choreography. The children moved as one, flames painting stories in the air, tales of their ancestors, of flight and freedom, of fire as life force rather than weapon. The audience watched in silence. Then applause erupted. Not polite appreciation, genuine awe. Lyra felt tears on her face. Her son, dancing, creating beauty, celebrated instead of feared. Robert squeezed her shoulder. Told you impossible was just another challenge. After the performance, people crowded around the young Draconites. Parents asked questions. Children wanted autographs. Station officials requested information about the program that a Centaurian mother approached Lyra. My son has sensory processing issues. He screams in crowded spaces, cannot handle normal classrooms. I was told he needs institutional care. But watching your son perform, I wondered, could Robert's program help us? Lyra smiled. Come to the center tomorrow. We will find a way. Because that was what they did now. Found ways. Built supports. Refused to accept impossible. Later that evening, Robert hosted a celebration dinner. Not just for Lyra and Ash anymore. The apartment could not hold everyone, so they had reserved a community room. 15 families from the support group. Staff from the center. Simon and the other young Draconites. A chaotic, loud, joyful gathering. Human food mixed with Velthian and Draconite and Centaurian dishes. Children ran everywhere, playing games that transcended species. Adults laughed and shared stories and planned future collaborations. Robert stood to make a toast. The room quieted. 1 year ago, a desperate mother sent me a message asking for help with her son. I said yes, because I saw myself in her struggle. Because I knew what drowning felt like. Because humans learn early that we survive together or not at all. He looked at Lyra. That one decision changed everything. Ash proved my methods worked. His success brought more families. More families meant more funding. More funding meant bigger programs. Now the entire station is implementing adaptive education models. Robert raised his glass. To Lyra, who refused to give up. To Ash, who refused to be broken. To every parent here who fights for their child every single day. You are all heroes. The room erupted in cheers. Lyra felt overwhelmed by gratitude and belonging. Ash climbed onto a chair, holding his own cup. I want to say something too. The room quieted again. A year ago, I hated myself. I thought I was a monster. Everyone treated me like I was dangerous. Like I was wrong just for existing. Ash's voice strengthened. Robert taught me I was not wrong. Just different. And different could be good if I learned to work with it instead of against it. He looked around the room. Now I help teach younger Draconite kids. I show them the breathing exercises, the control techniques. I tell them what Robert told me. That fire is not bad. Fear is bad. Control comes from practice, not from being perfect. Small flames danced at Ash's fingertips. Controlled. Beautiful. Purposeful. Thank you, Robert, for seeing me, for believing in me, for teaching my mom that asking for help is not weakness. More cheers. Robert looked suspiciously emotional. Lily signed something to him, and he laughed. My daughter says I am crying because I am sentimental. She is correct. The party continued for hours. Children performed impromptu shows. Adults planned future programs. Someone started dancing, and soon half the room joined in, a chaotic mix of species and styles. Lyra found herself talking with the Centaurian mother from earlier, sharing resources, offering hope, being for someone else what Robert had been for her. Later, much later, After most families had left, Lyra helped Robert clean up. Your program is changing the galaxy, she said, stacking cups. Our program. You're assistant director now. Equal partner. Fine. Our program is changing the galaxy. Robert smiled. Not the whole galaxy. Just this station. Just these families. Just one child at a time. That is how change works though, right? One person helps one person. That person helps another. Eventually it spreads. Humans call it paying it forward. We survive terrible circumstances, then we help others survive similar circumstances. Knowledge and support flowing outward in expanding circles. Robert finished wiping a table. Earth taught us that community is survival. So we build community wherever we go. Lily and Ash were asleep on a couch, tangled together. The human girl and the dragon boy. Best friends. Proof that connection transcended biology. I've been thinking, Lyra said quietly, about writing our story. Not for fame. For other families like mine. Other parents drowning and desperate. I want them to know hope exists. I think that is an excellent idea. We could collaborate. Your perspective and mine. Show the journey from both sides. Deal. They shook hands. A human gesture Lyra had learned. Simple, but meaningful. Robert gathered Lily carefully, not waking her. Same time next week? Family dinner. Always. Walking home, with Ash drowsy against her side, Lyra looked up at the station's artificial sky. Somewhere out there, other families struggled. Other children were called broken. Other parents faced impossible choices. But change was coming. Spreading outward from this one station. From this one program. From one human who had refused to accept that different meant defective. Ash mumbled something in his sleep. A small flame flickered in his palm, unconscious and perfectly controlled. Even in dreams, he had mastered what everyone said was impossible. Lyra thought about the social worker who had wanted to take him away, the schools that had expelled him, the people who had called him dangerous. They had all been wrong. Ash was not dangerous. He was extraordinary, and he had proven it by being exactly who he was, supported by people who refused to break him into something more acceptable. The next morning, Lyra started writing. She described the exhaustion, the fear, the moment she had almost given up. Then meeting Robert, learning that impossible was negotiable. Watching her son transform not by changing who he was, but by learning to navigate a world that had not been designed for him. She wrote about the parent support group, the adaptive techniques, the celebration of difference instead of elimination of it. But mostly, she wrote about hope. Real, tangible hope that came from one person caring enough to help. From community rising to support its members. From refusing to accept that anyone was beyond saving. Her story would reach other parents, other families, other beings who thought they were alone in their struggles. And maybe, just maybe, it would inspire more beings like Robert. More people who saw challenges as solvable, who built supports instead of barriers, who measured success not by conformity, but by thriving. 3 months later, Lyra published her account on the Galactic Network. Within a week, it had 10,000 views. Within a month, 1 million messages flooded in. Other parents, other struggling families, other species saying, I thought we were alone. Robert's model spread. 5 stations requested program implementation. Then 20. Then hundreds. The ASH initiative became galactic policy. Every educational institution had to provide adaptive supports. Every teacher received training in flexible methods. Every family gained access to resources that IT started with one desperate mother and one human who refused to say no. IT grew into a movement that changed how the galaxy treated its most vulnerable children. And at the center of it all, a young Draconite performed fire dances, taught younger students, and lived proof that different was not broken, just different. And different, given the right support, could be absolutely extraordinary. Years later, when people asked Robert why he had cared so much about one struggling family, his answer never changed. Humans survive by refusing to let each other drown. We build communities. We share knowledge. We adapt until we find solutions. He would smile. Besides, impossible is just a challenge we have not solved yet. And humans love a good challenge. That stubborn human optimism, born from surviving a death world, had given hope to an entire galaxy's worth of exceptional children. Point one family at a time, point one dinner at a time, point one miracle at a time.